I didn't expect the phone call. It came on a cold Thursday morning, just before sunrise. A former patient's daughter, breathless, panicked, trembling through the line. "Dr. Harper, it's Dad. He collapsed in the bathroom. There was blood. He's unconscious. The EMTs are here." Her voice cracked. And I knew. I'm no longer in practice. After more than 30 years as a men's health physician, I retired quietly, hoping to tend my garden, write, and maybe take the occasional fishing trip. But some stories don't leave you. Some truths demand to be told, especially the ones no one else will say out loud. Walter was 72, a retired school principal from Oregon. Strong, active, and stubbornly independent. His cholesterol was decent. His heart was old but steady. He walked every morning, still drove himself to town, still played chess with his grandkids. He wasn't just surviving after retirement, he was living until he wasn't. That morning, he was found on the bathroom floor, head slumped against the tile, barely breathing. The EMTs stabilized his heart, but the fall had fractured his skull. He survived, but the Walter I had known was gone, his words slurred. His gait was slow. He now lives with assistance. He no longer hikes. He no longer drives. And no one wanted to ask, what really happened in that bathroom? But I did, because I've seen this before. Too many times. It wasn't a heart attack. It wasn't a stroke. It wasn't anything violent or external. It was a moment, a private moment. The kind no one wants to admit, let alone talk about. Walter had masturbated. That was it. A normal private act. Something most men have done for decades. Something society says is safe, even healthy. But in that precise moment, early in the morning, before hydration, before food, before his heart had found its rhythm, it was the wrong act at the wrong time. It almost cost him his life. I'm telling you this because no one else will. Most men won't even whisper about it. Doctors don't ask. Sons don't know. Wives don't suspect. And so these moments slip through the cracks, disguised as random falls, undiagnosed fainting, old age. But I know better, and deep down maybe you do too. After 60, your body is not the same. Your blood vessels aren't as elastic. Your heart doesn't forgive stress as easily. Your nervous system reacts slower. Your recovery time stretches longer. And the very act that once brought you release and comfort could now trigger an unexpected storm inside you. I've had patients die alone on the bathroom floor. Others woke up in the confused, broken, never the same. And more still who suffer quietly dizzy spells, blurred vision, strange palpitations, never realizing the true cause. This is not about shame. It's about survival. Because when you masturbate right after waking, when your blood pressure is surging, your stress hormones are spiking and your heart hasn't stabilized yet, you create the perfect storm. A body in transition, then pushed to its limit. And when that storm hits, you may not feel it coming until the world goes dark. Until you're on the floor. Until no one's there to help. I've sat with men who wept in my office, ashamed of the fall they couldn't explain. I've watched families bury fathers without ever understanding what happened. I've carried the guilt of not warning them soon enough. So now, in my retirement, I've decided to speak. Loudly, clearly, and without apology. This video is not a scare tactic. It's a lifeline. I will show you the 7 danger zones, 7 windows of your daily routine where the act of self-pleasure quietly becomes a health risk. I will explain what's happening inside your body when you're dehydrated, fatigued, full, or emotionally off balance. I'll break down the timing, the physiology, the consequences, and most importantly, the safe path forward. Because yes, there is a right time. And yes, you can still enjoy your body, your freedom, your pleasure. But only if you understand how to work with your body, not against it. You've made it this far in life. You've earned the truth. And you deserve to live the years ahead not just longer, but stronger. So stay with me. Listen carefully. Because what you learn today might very well save your life or the life of someone you love. If this message speaks to you, please consider subscribing to this channel. Not for me, but for yourself. For the men in your life. For the families who deserve answers, not silence. Your support helps us continue creating honest, life-saving content in a world too quiet about things that matter. And now, before we move forward, I want to ask you something that might surprise you. Question for you. Do you believe most health risks for men over 60 are caused by A. Things we already know but ignore, B. Things no one ever talks about at all, Leave your answer in the comments below. We read everyone. And your voice might help someone else speak up too. They say knowledge is power, but when it comes too late, it feels more like regret. As a retired doctor who spent over 3 decades working with men over 60, I've learned something that very few physicians ever say out loud. Pleasure can carry a hidden price when the body has changed, and timing becomes everything. Men often imagine health risks as something outside themselves: disease, accidents, bad genes. But many of the most dangerous moments are born from something much smaller, a simple daily habit done at the wrong hour. You see, your body follows a rhythm, a pulse, an invisible dance between your heart, your hormones, your blood vessels, and your nervous system. And when you act out of sync with that rhythm, especially with something as physically intense as sexual stimulation, the consequences can unfold quietly and devastatingly. Let me take you inside 7 windows of the day moments I've come to call danger zones. These aren't based on theory. They're based on real cases. Men I knew, men I treated, men I couldn't always save. The first danger hides behind the comfort of early morning. You wake up and feel that familiar tension, maybe even a sense of craving. It feels private, natural, even soothing. But your body is already in turmoil. As you open your eyes, stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline spike sharply to prepare you for the day. Blood pressure jumps. Your heart is shifting gears. It's a physiological roller coaster you don't feel on the surface, but it's real. Add sexual stimulation into that surge, and you're pouring gasoline on an engine that hasn't warmed up. I've seen men faint, lose balance, or worse, experience arrhythmias they never saw coming, all before brushing their teeth. Then there's the long, quiet stretch of the afternoon. Between 2 and 4 p.m., your energy dips. Your blood vessels relax, your alertness softens, and your circulation slows. Many older men mistake this time as a safe opportunity. No one's around. The house is quiet, and the desire creeps in as a form of escape, but your cardiovascular system is in a slump. That sudden jump from low activity to sexual arousal can confuse the body, pulling blood to one region while starving others. I recall one man, Doan, who stood up too quickly after climaxing in his recliner. He passed out, hit the edge of his dining table, and didn't walk the same again. It wasn't lust that hurt him, it was timing. Another trap disguises itself as comfort, the moment after a heavy meal. You've just eaten, your belly is full, and you want to unwind. But here's what's happening inside you. Your body is diverting energy and blood flow to your digestive system. That's its top priority now, breaking down food, managing sugar, regulating hormones. When you redirect that same blood to fuel arousal, you create internal competition your body can't handle efficiently. Blood pressure drops, circulation falters. I remember a patient, Gerald, who lost consciousness by the sink 15 minutes after lunch. It wasn't food poisoning. It was a mismatch between desire and digestion. Let's talk about something most people ignore until it's too late. Dehydration. As we age, our sense of thirst dulls. We think we're fine. We skip water, maybe drink coffee instead. And then we wonder why we feel lightheaded after a private release. The answer is simple but serious. Your blood becomes thicker. Your heart strains harder to move it, and the effort required during climax tips your system over the edge. Roger, a man I saw in Seattle, used to shrug off leg cramps and breathlessness after pleasure. Until we tracked his water intake, it was nearly zero. He wasn't unwell, he was simply dry. Then there's the post-shower moment. It feels safe, even relaxing. You're warm, muscles are loose. Steam clouds the mirror. But what most men don't realize is that heat expands blood vessels and reduces blood pressure. You may already be a little unsteady. Combine that with the rush of arousal and the physical intensity of climax, and you're setting up a fragile system for collapse. One fall in the bathroom, especially at our age, doesn't just leave a bruise, it can take away your independence. And what about those moments of deep emotional stress? We all have them. A night of loneliness, a burst of anger, a wave of grief. In those times, self-pleasure can feel like a coping mechanism, something to numb the feeling. But physiologically, you're doing the opposite of what your body needs. Emotional stress activates your sympathetic nervous system. Your heart is already racing. Your blood vessels are already tight. Adding sexual stimulation is like revving a car that's already overheating. I've seen it turn a moment of escape into a spiral of regret, palpitations, fear, disorientation. The body cannot heal when it's being pushed in every direction at once. And lastly, the ritual that so many men embrace before sleep. It makes sense in theory: release tension, drift off. But late at night, your body is preparing to repair. Hormones like melatonin are rising, cortisol is dropping, and your internal systems are winding down. Orgasm disrupts that. It spikes alertness, triggers heart rate increases, and in many cases, fragments the sleep that your body so badly needs. One of my former patients, Harold, kept waking throughout the night, not knowing why. Once he stopped masturbating before bed and gave his body a buffer of time, his sleep improved along with his mood, memory, and strength. I share these 7 danger zones not to instill fear, but to offer clarity. Your body is not broken. It's just different now. It asks for care, for rhythm, for wisdom. The act of self-pleasure isn't wrong, but doing it without understanding your body's new limitations can be. Timing matters, hydration matters, emotion matters, and most importantly, awareness matters. So if you've ever felt dizzy, unusually tired, or anxious after private intimacy, don't dismiss it as just getting older. It might be your body speaking softly, urgently, and hoping you'll finally listen. Because too many men don't, and some never get another chance. There's a silence that surrounds this topic, not a gentle silence, but a heavy, suffocating one. In all my years as a physician, especially working with men past the age of 60, I have come to understand that some of the most dangerous things we face in medicine are not diseases or accidents. They're the things we never talk about. The quiet choices, the private habits, the moments no one witnesses and no one questions until it's too late. You see, this isn't about sex. It's about the shame we wrap around it. It's about the way men are conditioned, especially in our generation, to keep things locked away. We were taught to endure, not to explain, to fix, not to feel. We learn to suffer in silence, and that silence becomes dangerous when it masks risk. I've had patients stumble into my office, bruised and bewildered, with no idea why they fainted. They told me about dizziness, fatigue, shortness of breath. But when I gently asked if they had experienced any kind of stimulation or release before the event, their eyes dropped. Their voices lowered. Some said nothing, others lied. Not because they meant to deceive, but because they were afraid of what that kind of honesty might expose. They didn't want to be judged. They didn't want to be seen as weak, indulgent, or strange. And frankly, they didn't think anyone cared. Even many doctors don't ask. Not because they're incompetent, but because the system doesn't encourage it. Our medical charts are full of boxes for blood pressure and cholesterol, but almost none for sexual behavior, especially solo behavior. And if the patient doesn't bring it up, it gets lost in the background, dismissed as irrelevant. But I've seen what happens when we ignore these conversations. I've seen men lose their mobility. I've seen marriages shaken by sudden changes in health no one could explain. I've seen families left behind, confused, grieving, wondering how a man who seemed perfectly fine yesterday was suddenly gone, and behind more of those stories than we'd like to admit was a moment no one talked about. A moment that took place behind a closed door, without warning, without guidance, without safety. There's something else too. A kind of loneliness that grows louder with age. It's not just the silence of others, it's the silence inside. As a man gets older, he begins to feel invisible in a world that prizes youth, vitality, and noise. Conversations shrink, friendships fade, touch becomes rare. And in that vacuum, self-pleasure may remain one of the last ways he feels connected to his own body, to his own presence. But because no one talks about it, he doesn't know how to do it safely anymore. He doesn't know his risks have changed. He doesn't even know the questions he should be asking. I once had a patient, I'll call him Mark, who told me through tears that after his wife passed, he couldn't bring himself to talk to anyone about what he was going through. He didn't want pity. He didn't want advice. He just wanted one part of his life to feel normal. So he kept his routines, including the one we're talking about now. One evening, he collapsed alone in his bedroom. He fractured his hip and spent 6 months in rehabilitation. Not once did anyone ask him what led to the fall. They chalked it up to age. I knew better. So did he. And he told me something I'll never forget. It wasn't the fall that hurt most, Doc. It was that I had no one to talk to before it happened, and no one to explain it to after. That broke something in me. I realized then how many men are wandering through this chapter of life without guidance. Not because they don't care, but because no one gave them permission to speak. No one gave them the language to ask, is this still safe? Should I be doing this differently? Why does it feel different now? Instead, we pretend nothing changes. Or worse, we pretend men stop needing anything at all. But your needs don't vanish with age. They evolve. They soften. They shift. And when we don't speak about those shifts, we risk turning them into landmines. This is why I started writing. This is why I'm speaking now in my retirement, when I no longer have to answer to hospital boards or clinical schedules. Because someone needs to say what so many have lived and never voiced, that your health is not just about the visible. It's about the hidden rhythms, the private decisions, the quiet battles. You deserve more than silence. You deserve the truth, the tools, and the time to adjust with dignity. And if the culture around us is too embarrassed to have that conversation, then let's build a new one right here. One that honors honesty, embraces vulnerability, and protects strength by being informed. I know this subject might make some people uncomfortable. That's okay. Growth often does. But I also know that the most powerful changes begin with the simplest words. You're not alone. So if you're still listening, if something in this message resonates, then I invite you to stay. Keep watching. Keep learning. And maybe when you're ready, speak. Leave a comment. Share your story. Ask a question. Not for me, but for the man you were 20 years ago, and the man you're becoming now. Because if we don't talk about this, we let the silence win. And I've seen what that silence costs, too many times. Not again. For years, I've had men sit across from me in quiet, hesitant moments, asking some version of the same question. So, is it still okay for me to do this? They're talking about something deeply human. Not just pleasure, but connection. A moment of release, of contact with the self, especially when other forms of intimacy have faded or changed. They're not asking for permission. They're asking for reassurance, for clarity, for truth. And the answer I've given time and again is this. Yes, it can be okay, but only if it's done at the right time. Because after 60, your body is not the same system it was decades ago. The mechanics have shifted. The timing now matters more than ever. There's a window, a kind of golden hour in the late morning, where the body finds a certain harmony, typically between 9 o'clock and 11 a.m., after you've been awake for a little while, had some hydration, maybe eaten a light breakfast, and moved around a bit. Your cardiovascular system begins to settle. The hormone surges from the moment you woke up have evened out. Your blood pressure has found its rhythm. Your nervous system is no longer in its early morning transition. You're more alert, but not overstimulated. Your body, in many ways, is balanced. This is what makes late morning the safest time for older men to engage in self-pleasure. Not because it's convenient or private, but because physiologically, your body is best prepared to handle the temporary shifts in blood pressure, heart rate, and neurological stimulation that come with arousal and orgasm. When I first started seeing this pattern, it wasn't from books or clinical studies. It was from listening. The men who came into my office, who reported fewer problems, less fatigue, fewer dizzy spells, better energy, were the ones who had unconsciously gravitated toward this time of day. One patient, Stanley, a retired engineer in his late 60s, told me he had started setting aside late mornings a few times a week, after his morning walk and coffee, not just for pleasure, but as a kind of check-in with himself. He didn't know it, but he was honoring his body's natural rhythm, and it changed everything for him. What's remarkable is that once this time is honored consistently, the experience itself begins to change. It's no longer just about release. It becomes something restorative, a moment of mindfulness, a way to take stock of how your body is feeling. Are your legs strong today? Is your breathing steady? How fast is your recovery afterward? In this way, intimacy becomes a part of your health practice, not something separate from it. I had another patient, Joseph, who had been struggling with unpredictable energy crashes throughout the day. He kept blaming his age. But when we went through his daily routine, he admitted he often engaged in sexual release right before his afternoon nap, sometimes even skipping lunch or hydration. I asked him to shift the timing, just try late morning for a few weeks. The change was dramatic. He reported better sleep, improved digestion, and a feeling of groundedness he hadn't experienced in years. This is the value of timing. It's not just about avoiding danger. It's about optimizing vitality. Late morning gives your body the grace of preparation. You're not at your most fatigued. You're not dehydrated. You're not in a hormone storm or a digestive overload. You're present, awake, engaged, and that presence makes all the difference. Of course, none of this is about rules carved in stone. Your body is yours. Your rhythms may differ. Some men feel strongest in the early afternoon. Others find their clarity in the early evening. But what matters is that you pay attention. You don't treat pleasure as a mindless habit. You treat it as a conscious choice, one made in partnership with your body's needs, not against them. One of the tragedies of modern masculinity is that we're taught to treat our bodies like machines, something to be used, pushed, fixed when broken. But your body is not a machine. It's a living, breathing conversation. And after 60, that conversation becomes quieter, more subtle. You have to listen differently. And timing is one of the ways your body speaks. The safest time is the one where your system is most ready. Late morning is, for most men, that moment. It's not just about safety. It's about trust. When you honor your body's timing, it begins to trust you back. It responds better. It supports you longer. I'm not sharing this to control you. I'm sharing this to empower you. Because I've seen what happens when men feel confident, not confused when they act from awareness, not fear. So if you've been wondering, doubting, hesitating, yes, you can still engage in pleasure. Yes, it can still be safe, nourishing, even joyful. But meet your body where it is now, not where it used to be. Wait for that golden hour. Hydrate, move, breathe. And when you feel calm, clear, and present, then you'll know. Not just that it's okay, but that it's right. I've spent most of my life in examination rooms, hospitals, and quiet corners of men's lives where few are ever invited. I've watched fathers, grandfathers, husbands, brothers all sitting before me not as patients, but as men trying to make sense of a body that was no longer behaving the way it once did. Some came in angry, others confused, some too ashamed to even speak clearly about what they were feeling. And more often than not, it wasn't a diagnosis they feared. It was the realization that something deeply familiar, something private, something they'd never questioned, had quietly become dangerous. That's why I chose to speak now, long after retirement. Not because I miss medicine, but because I miss the moments that truly mattered, the quiet truth-telling, the humanity of care. And what I want to leave you with now, at the end of this conversation, is not a warning, but an invitation. An invitation to pay attention, to look inward. To understand that your strength now isn't measured by what you can power through, but by what you choose to understand and adapt to. You are not the man you were at 25. That's not a loss, it's a reality. And within that reality lies a new kind of wisdom, if you're willing to claim it. For decades, you've used your body instinctively. Now, you're being asked to use it consciously. That shift from instinct to awareness is the true rite of passage into elderhood. And the truth is, no one teaches you how to age with dignity. No one sits you down and says, here is how your heart might change. Here is how your nervous system might respond differently. Here is how desire will feel more tender, more complex. Here is how something as simple as timing might mean the difference between pleasure and pain. You're left to piece it together yourself, often too late, often alone. But you don't have to be alone in this, not anymore. What I've laid out in these reflections isn't a set of rules, but a map. It's meant to help you navigate what so many men stumble through in silence. To give language to the questions you didn't know how to ask. To offer you a sense of control in a season of life that often feels like it's slipping away. I've seen what happens when this conversation is avoided, when a man pretends nothing has changed. I've seen the aftermath of falls that didn't have to happen, of fatigue that didn't have to linger, of shame that never should have taken root. I've also seen what happens when a man leans into the truth. When he adapts, listens, adjusts, not from fear, but from love. Love for his body. Love for the life still ahead. Love for the people who still need him. One of the greatest myths we've been fed is that after a certain age, we are meant to fade. But fading is not your fate. You are still here. You are still capable of intimacy, of connection, of pleasure, of meaning. But only if you respect the terrain you now walk upon. I don't care if you've never spoken to anyone about this before. I don't care if you were raised in a home where men didn't cry, didn't ask questions, didn't dare appear vulnerable. What I care about is that right now you're willing to listen. That you're willing to take a single step toward deeper care. Because that one step could change everything. There is power in choosing presence. Power in saying, I will not be careless with myself. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. And so I ask you, as one man to another, as a doctor who spent his life watching what most ignore, what will you do with this knowledge now? Will you brush it off, tuck it away, return to habit? Or will you pause, breathe, reflect, and begin again with intention? The truth is, we don't always get second chances. Some men never wake up from the moment they didn't think would matter. Some men don't get to explain what happened, don't get to heal from it. But right now, you still have time. You still have strength. You still have choice. So choose awareness, choose rhythm. Choose a gentler way of being with yourself. Your body is still talking. Your job now is to listen. And if this message stirred something in you, let it stay stirred. Don't let it pass like another video or lecture or warning. Let it root. Let it shift something, even if small. Because what you do in the quietest moments of your life can echo far longer than you think. I thank you for trusting me with this space. I thank you for honoring yourself enough to be here. And I hope truly that what you've heard gives you back something every man deserves: clarity, confidence, and peace. Now go forward not as someone afraid, but as someone aware. That is where your power lives now. That is how you protect your future. And that is how you love yourself quietly, wisely, and completely. In the quiet moments of aging, when the world moves a little faster than we do, and the body begins to whisper truths it once shouted, we're faced with a choice. We can either ignore those whispers, or we can lean in and listen. What you've just heard in this conversation was never meant to shame or scare you. It was meant to wake something up inside you, a deeper respect for the body you live in, and a clearer understanding of how to care for it. Not just when things go wrong, but while you still have the power to protect what matters most. So many men reach their later years believing they must shrink, stay silent, or pretend nothing changes. But change is not the enemy. Change is the invitation. It's your body asking you to slow down, to pay attention, to move with it, not against it. What once was effortless now requires intention. What once was instinctive now asks for awareness. And that's the beauty of this moment: awareness. You now know what most men your age have never been told. You've learned the importance of timing. You've heard about the danger zones. You've been given a roadmap not of restrictions but of clarity. You've been reminded that your pleasure, your health, your strength, and your safety are not separate things. They are deeply connected. In my decades as a doctor, the men who aged the best were never the strongest, the richest, or the most disciplined. They were the ones who stayed curious, who stayed humble enough to keep learning, who honored their body not with denial or pride but with care. If you take one thing away from all of this, let it be this: your body is still worthy of attention, your experiences still matter, and your life still holds meaning. Whether you're 60 or 80, there is always room for more understanding, more self-respect, and more wisdom. And that wisdom begins with you making different choices, not out of fear, but out of love for the years still ahead. Maybe the way you begin is small. Maybe tomorrow you drink more water. Maybe you stop rushing your morning. Maybe you pause before acting, just to check in with how your body feels. These little moments, these acts of care, are not insignificant. They are the foundation of longevity, dignity, and true masculine strength. Because strength now is not about how much you push, it's about how much you honor what's real. And what's real is this: your health matters, your safety matters, and you matter. So now I ask you, what's one thing you'll start doing differently after hearing this? A. I'll pay more attention to the timing of my habits. B. I'll begin treating my body with more respect overall. Please leave your answer in the comment section below. Your insights might help another man find his way too. And if this message touched you, even just a little, I kindly invite you to subscribe to this channel. If you feel inspired, consider donating to help us continue sharing more honest, compassionate, and life-saving content like this. I may be older now, but I'm not done giving. And with your support, we can keep building a space where aging is not feared, but understood. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. Let's grow wiser together.